Bienvenidos to the 2021 Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. Before we begin, please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box. Juana, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your books?
Hi, Emma. Such a pleasure. Hola, Rene. Yes,
Hello.
happy to tell you about my books. I am the author and illustrator of a number of books. In this case, I wanted to share with you Juana and Lucas, which is a book series that is loosely based on things that happened to me growing up in Bogota, in Colombia. And this year we have muchos changes coming out, which I'm particularly excited to share with all of you readers. So I'll look forward to reading more, to sharing more about what happens to Juana or to me. And just to give a little teaser, I'll show the author's picture where there's someone else joining the family. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to sharing it with readers. Yeah, thank you, Emma. Rene, hello. Good to see you.
Hello, me too. I am so happy to be here. We want to have a great activity, writing together and
Yeah.
illustrating. My name is Rene Colato Lainez. I am originally from El Salvador, and I write mostly bilingual books. And I am so happy of my new series. It's called My Friend, Mi Amigo. And this is actually book number 2. This book is coming in January. It is a bilingual book about 2 boys. One speaks English, one speaks Spanish, but they have fun together. But why fighting? Languages are beautiful, Spanish and English. So let's join together and let's have fun together. The first book is called Let's Be Friends, Seamos Amigos, and that one is coming in December. This one is the January book. And I am so happy that, and I hope to write more books about these 2 boys. The illustrator is Nomar Perez, and he is from Puerto Rico. And I know he's in another panel, so you can watch his panel too. Thank you.
I'm Emma Otheguy. If you are watching this and you're looking at my name and saying, how am I supposed to remember that spelling is pronounced Otheguy? I want you to remember that Otheguy rhymes with Peggy. I'm the author of picture books like A Sled for Gabo, which is also available in Spanish, Un Trineo para Gabo. And I've written novels for children as well. And this one is called Sofia Acosta Makes a Scene, and it will be published in January. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do an activity. Juana, Rene, and I, we are all children's book creators, and we are actually we're not just going to tell you how we create a picture book. We're actually going to create a story, the 3 of us, live, right here on this panel. You are all going to watch all the messiness that goes into creating a story. And it's actually a little bit of a game. You're going to see that Juana and Rene and I each take different parts of writing the story. And so it's something that all of you can do in your classrooms, with your friends. Anytime you have a group of 2 or 3 people together, you can make a story in this way. So Juana, can you get us started?
Happy to, Emma. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And of course, as we started saying already, hola, so good to be here with all of you. So in order to write, and since we're going to do it here together, we thought we would start by sharing what a character is and how to think of a character as we build this story. A character can be a person, an animal, an object, or even a place. So we're not just limited to the experiences that might come to mind naturally of a specific person, because we could also think of it as a bench or our favorite toy. They could be characters too, but we have to think of who they are. And I'm thinking perhaps in this case it could be a piggy for our character today, and how old this piggy is. We could say this pig is around 8 years old or so. And where are they? I think they might be in the city. I won't give many details about the city so far and who's around them. Oh, so many different animals around this beloved piggy that we've just met. And I don't know, we could think about more details about this character. I don't know if we should discuss this even further.
Yeah, I think it's always really important to discuss further. And this is something that I do with my friends and my, people who help me write my stories. Is one thing that always helps me is when people ask me questions. So Juana, Rene and I are going to ask you some questions about this pig.
Bring it
So
on.
first of all, what does this, yeah, okay. So what does this little cerdito, what do they love? Like, what are their favorite things?
Huh. So there's nothing more close to this piggy's heart than dancing. They love dancing. There's nothing more special for this little pig than being able to dance. Yeah.
And what makes they
Oh.
angry? Porque se enoja.
Oh, y cómo se enoja. There are a number of things that make this piggy a little bit upset, but I think what could make this piggy angry? Maybe when people are disrespectful, that makes this piggy really, really angry. Yeah.
I bet a lot of people don't think that pigs can dance. So maybe that's probably disrespectful. So what are they scared of though, this dancing piggy?
Oh, this dancing piggy has a huge issue because even though they love to dance, this little piggy is terrified of crowds and has a terrible stage fright, which is kind of getting in the way of this piggy's great performance.
Yeah, in Juan, I know everybody has dreams. Tenemos nuestros sueños.
Claro.
What are these dreams this piggy is dreaming of?
This piggy is dreaming of being the prima ballerina of a big ballet company. And there's nothing that this piggy loves more, the idea of just having the spotlight just to herself. But of course, the idea of stage fright and being in the spotlight is also very, very tricky for a little piggy. So that's very conflicting for our friend here, the piggy.
And now I will talk about the setting, el lugar de la historia. A setting can be, the first thing is the location. Where is the story takes place? In the ocean, el océano, maybe in the desert, maybe in a place from the past or from the future. But for this story, I wonder if this little piggy is in the city. That will be great in La Ciudad. And the time of the day, morning, afternoon, I want to see lights, many lights all over the city. I think at night, en la noche, the weather, maybe it's kind of cold. I don't know. Maybe she's wearing a sweater or a jacket. Oh, because it is very important also for the setting to include the five senses. That's why I was telling about the lights and the sounds. The city is such a noisy city with different kind of noises, people talking, cars, buses. So that's big. It can hear many sounds and see the lights of that beautiful city. What do you think, Emma and Juana? What else can we add for the senses?
I really like, well, you told me what the piggy is seeing. So they're seeing like the city lit up at night and maybe even like that theater where they dream of dancing, but they're too afraid of because of their stage fright with lights. They're hearing the sounds of all the traffic. I wonder, what does the city smell like?
Maybe it's a clean city, or maybe it's lots of city that has too many trash. I don't know. I hope that it is a clean city because we have to take care of our city. Remember to recycle. We have to recycle to have a nice and wonderful city because that's where we live. That your own setting. That's the place where you live. Let's try to have it nice and beautiful. So we can be proud of, this is my city, and it is clean and beautiful and wonderful. And I imagine this little piggy looking at the big signal in front of the theater. Maybe they're having like a big presentation, and this pig is right there closing her eyes and thinking, oh, I wish I will be there. I wish that name will be my name. Oh, I wish that I can be the best ballerina in the whole universe. And I know that she's afraid, right? She's afraid of the stage, but you know what? We have to keep going, and we have to overcome those all our things that we are afraid of, so we can continue with our dreams. So that's what I see this pig like, oh, I want to be there. My
Oh, I
name
love that
in the
description.
future. Yeah. So so that would be a good setting for our cochinita. And also I want to ask children and parents, how do you say pig in Spanish? Because it is one of those words that has so many different words in Latin America. At the chat you can add it. In El Salvador, we call it cochinito or chanchito. Of course, cerdito is like the most common word, but in Salvador, chancho is very popular. It's un chanchito, un cochinito. What about Emma? Do you have any other name for piggy in Spanish or en Juana?
Qué curioso. In Colombia, we call them cerditos, but it also depends on the region.
Yeah.
So cerdo, you know, obviously lechon or chancho. So yeah, isn't it funny how one language has so many different words to
Yeah.
express things? It's beautiful. We're very, very lucky to speak such a beautiful
I
language.
have something funny to tell you all about the word for pig. So Rene, for me, I knew the word cerdo or cerdito. I'm thinking of because I'm thinking this is a little pig, this little dancing pig. So I'm thinking cerdito. And I knew cochino también.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, cochino, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what we say for farts. So I'm embarrassed to say, but that's I don't know. Maybe that's just my weird family. Have any of you ever heard anybody say that before?
Yeah, that's another cochino means something dirty. Like in El Salvador, is if people doesn't take a shower, so que cochino, no te has bañado.
Right.
We use it like that, but
yeah, I guess because pigs have a stereotype of being dirty, but yeah, it's funny. So
probably. Yeah, it's a good reminder. I hadn't thought of cochino, but you're so right. So true. So many different ways of expressing things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the five senses. You did such a beautiful description, Rene. And I was thinking also when you were describing, how she's feeling and this sort of overlap of her dreams and her anxieties and fears, and also how setting can also be part of how the characters feel, right? Is she feeling her heart thumping, or how textures feel around her, or temperature wise, and so many different things. So it's not just about is it day or night, but also just how the character perceives all these things. And I think you did such a beautiful way of just bringing that into to life. So I don't know if you guys if y'all think we should move to the next slide.
To the conflict.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about conflict.
So conflict, you might think conflict and you might think like a fight. That's sometimes what we think of. So conflict in a story, it can be a fight, but really it's just anything that happens that's not good and that puts your character in a situation that maybe they don't want to be in, and that's gonna make things a little bit exciting. So another way of thinking about a conflict is, what problem does the character face? So we already know that this pig, this little cerdito, has this problem of they want to be a star, but they have stage fright. But let's take it to the next level and let's talk about what goes wrong. And okay, for me, what goes wrong for a pig, when I think about a pig that's in a crowded city and is about to, maybe they're about to like work up the courage to burst into that theater and dance on stage, but pigs have a natural enemy. And the natural enemy of a pig is a butcher. So I think what goes wrong is that there is a butcher and he is driving around this city looking for the next lechon, or this is another one of those questions that people have different words for. Do you all say lechon, or do you say pernil, or do you say something else? For, I don't know. Those are both words that I hear a lot in New York. So anyway, this butcher, whether it's lechon or pernil, this butcher is going to be making some. So he sees this pig and he kidnaps the pig. He puts the pig in the back of the truck so that he can go to his butcher shop and sell the pig to put on someone's plate. So now the pig is not only afraid to go on stage, they're literally trapped in the back of a truck.
Oh, that's a good conflict. What can this little pig do? Oh my.
Oh no. What's going to happen?
You surely took it to a whole new level with that conflict.
I hate doing that. When I write, I'm always afraid to do that. I always want everything to end nicely, but I know that if I want the story to be good, I've got to, I've got to think of the scariest thing I can think of. And for a pig, it's the butcher. To have a story, we don't just want to end with the butcher, because then everybody would walk away here being like, that Emma Otheguy lady is so horrible and awful, right? We wouldn't want to end a story that way. We always want to resolve a story. And what resolving a story means is that feeling that you have when you think about that poor little piggy who just wanted to dance on stage, being trapped in the back of that truck. The resolution is what takes that feeling away and makes it all better and makes us smile. So Juana, can you do that for us? Can you resolve
Happy to, because I cannot take it. Poor little piggy stuck in the truck with the butcher. That is awful. So I think you did such a wonderful job, Emma, to describe all these details and why it matters, why this piggy is in such an awful, dire situation. And I think it is very important to make it clear for our readers, why does it matter so much? Why is it such a big issue? So that once the resolution comes, we can feel like, okay, things have come to an end. We can now see how it all evolved in the story. And in this particular case, this little piggy has to confront the biggest fears of her life. And that is how she realizes that the only way to get out of this very, very difficult situation is to get over her fear of being in the spotlight and her stage fright, and just dance away from the butcher. And so she decides, while she's in the truck trying to figure out how is she gonna make her way out and be safe, she just decides to jump out in the most graceful way out of the truck and dance away through the city in this beautiful night, enjoying all the lights from the streets all the way back to the theater. No matter who's watching, no matter who's looking at her, she just cannot think about that. She just needs to stay away from this butcher and stay safe. And she finally makes it safely to the theater, back to the theater. And she is so thrilled to still be alive that she just decides to dance with all her might and be happy. And she does finally become the prima ballerina she'd always dreamt of being. So I don't know if this brings enough to a resolution, but I thought maybe we could think of this character visually, and perhaps we can draw a little bit. What do you all think?
I think that was a great resolution. And I think every story that ends with a great resolution deserves a colorín colorado.
Este cuento se ha terminado.
Muy bien, perfecto.
And I imagine everybody clapping at that.
Yes, everybody's clapping. I hope you're all clapping.
Oh, you're fantastic.
We all feel so relieved for our piggy. So I thought maybe I could share with you while I draw, and I know I will not be the only one drawing. You might have noticed that during our introductions, Emma and Rene described themselves as authors, as writers. And I also did describe myself as an illustrator, but I think it is important to remind our audience that we all learn to draw and dance and sing. And sometimes we need to remember that we still carry this with us, and that even when we grow older, we still have the ability of drawing. Some of us decide to do it professionally, and some others take other routes, and that's fine. But I think it is important to have the opportunity to celebrate our ability to draw and to have visual ways of telling stories. And in doing so, I think it is important to think of all the details that were being described, um, as we were building the story. So we know our piggy uh, loves dancing, right? So here's her face. And Rene described her wearing a sweater. So I'm going to do my best. Rene, is there a particular pattern to her sweater or anything that comes to mind when you think
Probably,
it?
probably music and notes because she likes to dance. Maybe her sweater can have like
Mm.
music and notes all over.
I love that. That's excellent. So let's draw some musical notes here on the sweater. Is there anything else that comes to mind on what our piggy might be wearing? I don't know if a tutu or a falda or un faldón. I don't know.
I think
Let's
a
make it like
tutu.
a tutus will be great. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Here we go. She's so gracious. And maybe it's a little chilly, so she's wearing some tights. Gonna do some polka dots. I'll be curious to see how Emma and Rene decide to draw our hero here, since we all have different styles and different ways of telling stories, which is also a great thing, right?
Yeah.
Here are the musical notes. And maybe she can have some colitas here.
she's so cute.
Thank you. So we can think of maybe adding a little bit of setting just to have an idea of all the things that might be around her. Um, so perhaps I'm just going to put her on the center of the screen, and we see some of the lights.
Oh yeah, those lights. What about the theater? Can we see the theater?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. See, that's the beauty of collaboration, right? The being able to maybe things I couldn't quite think about. Emma and Rene can point them out, and that's such an important thing about the work that we do. Just even though it might seem solitary, we are always working as a team. So maybe the theater is right here. El Gran Teatro.
Mm.
That's beautiful.
I love it. Oh, it's such a fancy window.
Oh, yes,
I want to
yes.
make a window like that now. I'm going to make one like that in my drawing.
There's some lights. Cerdita. Oh, I ran out of space, but there we go.
Oh, it's almost like that's what she's dreaming of.
Yes. She's living the dream. And we cannot forget, obviously, that we need to draw a little bit of tension, something that tells us more about the story, since we have the character, we have the setting. So perhaps here we can see the truck.
Yes.
Dun,
Parked.
dun, dun, dun.
I know.
And maybe the carnicero, the butcher, is like looking back to another side. Don't look at her. He must be looking through. Oh, where is it? Like.
So there's the truck, and maybe the butcher is hiding here.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's when she said, oh, that's mine. That will be my next cerdo, cocinarla en el pernil, en la pierna de cerdo.
He's so scary. Oh my goodness.
So scary.
He's so scary.
Yeah.
There he is with his apron. Maybe we can do some a big mustache and a little cap here. All right.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. I love it.
Thank you. So now I'd love to see what you've been drawing too.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
I love that drawing so much. I love how you see our whole story. Okay, here's what I've been drawing. Ready? Is everybody ready? I drew, okay, it's a little bit, let me make sure it's on my camera. Okay, I drew the pig, and I drew the musical notes because I was drawing as we were talking, and I also drew like a little lacito in her hair. And then I really liked those windows that Juana was drawing, so I wanted to learn to draw windows like that. And I wrote Prima Ballerina on the marquee instead of El Gran Teatro, although I like El Gran Teatro. Y El Camión. Aquí viene el camión.
And my scene is the final scene, the one that I did.
Oh, look at that.
Look, there's so many people. Viva la mejor, otra, otra, otra. And they have señales. La mejor bailarina del mundo. The #1 dancer of the world. See, and it's sold out. Oh my goodness. No more tickets. And she's there receiving a trophy because she's the best bailarina and a medal, una medalla. And look at her. She's so happy. Say, yes, my dream comes true. Yeah.
And
I know it's not perfect, but it's right there.
I think your drawing has such an insight into something that I think is really true about storytelling. Because if we remember at the beginning, when we asked Juana, what does this pig dream of? We said, oh, she dreams of, being the star and being, having everybody, seeing her name up in lights and having everybody cheer for her. And then in your drawing, that's both what she was dreaming, but it's also what things are like in the end when she finally learns to dance and learns to overcome her fears. And I think that's probably true if you're trying to write a good story anytime, that by the end, it's like the dream and the reality match up.
Yeah. Yeah, and dreams come true. Yeah.
I love all the people shouting, otra, otra. So good.
Otra, otra. I like this one thing.
I love how she's spinning. It's so cute. Just twirling around. That's so beautiful. Just adding actions. Isn't it amazing to think that we constructed this together and yet we have similar visions, but we all chose to draw very different scenes, which is fascinating. I think it goes to show how there's many, many different ways of telling the same story even, and how important it is precisely for all of us to use our voices.
Yeah, it's wonderful. This is a great story. Yeah. And I like stories about pigs. So this is like another one. Oh my goodness. And can I draw an easy way to write a pic that I always do this with my students. So if you don't know how, this is very easy. And actually, I learned this from El Chavo del Ocho. Once upon a time, you can do a big circle like this. See, it doesn't look like a circle, but let's pretend it is a circle. Inside the circle, there are two frijolitos. Those are the two frijolitos, two beans. And also there is a plate. Inside the plate, there is another two beans. Now we draw a triangular chair on top. And this is another chair and one at the bottom and two at the bottom. So there you go. And right here, we can make like little mouth. And for the tail, I say, I tell my TK students, let's do it like using a letter. What letter would you like, Juana? Or Emma?
What
Jota.
letter would I?
Letter J. So let's do
La
a letter
J. Okay.
J. So look,
Oh,
and that's the letter J. So
that is so
this is
good.
very easy. So if you want to make a pig and you don't know how, this is like an easy step to do it. And my kids, my students, they love to do it. Right now we are doing turkeys and then Santa Claus, but that's just by using shapes. Because I want them to think, yes, I am an artist. Even though they are 4 and 5 years old, they can have the idea, yes, I can do it. I am an artist. Because everybody is an artist. Yeah, everybody, we can draw.
Absolutely. And I also love how you were even though there were very, very simple geometric shapes, you were also bringing the concept of a story. So you were telling a story while you were drawing. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
I love that. And that it's a plate, but it's also a pig. That's so great. Or a dinner table, a whole dinner table.
Yeah.
Amazing. So we have some questions from young readers, from kids, just like all of you out there. So let's start our questions. So this question is from Kylie L. in Santa Ynez, California.
My name is Kylie. I'm from California. When did you first realize you wanted to be a writer?
Juana, can you tell us when you first realized you wanted to be a writer?
Such an important question. Thank you for asking, Kylie. So, I never thought growing up that I belonged in books or that my stories would belong in books. I grew up in Bogota, and most of the books that I was reading were coming from Europe and were coming from the US. And so people in the books that I was reading wouldn't feel like me or wouldn't look like me. And so it just made me think for the longest time, oh, no. Books are for other stories that have nothing to do with me because they're fantastic in a way. They seemed so far removed. And it wasn't until much later in life, in my late 20s actually, when I realized, I have lived some really interesting stories and I've had very interesting experiences. Maybe I could share them, and who knows, maybe they'll become a book. And so I started sharing these little stories actually for a project that was homework, and my friends found it really funny. And it slowly snowballed, and and 8 years later, it became Juana and Lucas. So for a long time, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe my stories would belong in books. And thankfully now here we are, and I realize how important it is to remind especially young readers that just like my stories ended up becoming a book, so could their life experiences. And so that's why I think it's very important to remind everybody that their stories matter greatly. Thank you for such a wonderful question, Kylie.
And Rene, could you tell us when you first realized you wanted to be a writer?
I was always, and still I am, I love to read. I like to read books, comic books, everything that comes to me, I like to read. So I was a good reader. And I wonder, oh, what should I do to write a story? I wish I could write a story like this. And I remember in El Salvador, I went to the public library and I was always reading stories. I asked my teachers for books and I took them home, but I never brought. But I just was reading and dreaming. But when I was traveling from El Salvador to the United States, I was stuck in Mexico City for almost 2 months. no electricity because my father and I, we were living in an old trailer and there was no electricity. There was no TV, and I love watching TV. And I remember that, what do I do? And I started writing. I wrote about El Salvador, about my future dreams in the United States. And then I realized, I am writing and I love what I'm writing. And then when I finally arrived to the United States, I started writing even more. And I saw those my teacher's eye. You wrote this? This is good. Keep writing. And I have that little message. Keep writing, Rene. You are doing good. And in college, as some of my friends, actually, I have this short story called Lágrimas de Sangre. And I went to a seminar with other students, and I read my story. And this students told me, Rene, we want to do a performance in a school, and I think that your story is perfect. It has a lot of intrigue. Can we do Lágrimas de Sangre? And it was in Spanish. So she translated it into English, and it was wonderful. They invited me to see the final presentation, and I couldn't believe. I said, that is my story. That is my Lágrimas. So I said, okay, I need to be a writer. I need to write stories. And I became an elementary teacher, and I fell in love with picture books, especially bilingual books, stories that are in English, in Spanish, and they're talking about our Latino kids, our Latinx children. And then I said, this is me. I want to be a writer, and I want to write these stories.
That's beautiful.
So powerful.
I like both of you. I mean, I knew I liked to write. I don't think it occurred to me to be a writer as my job until I was much older. But the way I describe how I realized I wanted to be a writer is, does anybody have an older sister? And if you have an older sister, or maybe if you just have a lot of siblings in general, you might have had the feeling that I had a lot as a kid, where I would be sitting at the dinner table or, with my brother and my sister and my parents, and I'd have just gotten home from school, and all of these exciting things would have happened to me, or they were exciting or interesting to me. And I would be so excited to tell everybody about that. And every time I wanted to open my mouth, my sister would start talking. And I would be like, and then my mom would start talking. And I always felt like I have so much to say and no one will listen to me. If you are the third in your family, you might know exactly what I'm talking about, or maybe you don't. But that's the way I felt as a kid. And what I realized was that when I wrote, no one could interrupt me. And I got to say all of these things that were in my head in my writing. And best of all, I had teachers in elementary school, and I'm saying this because I hope some teachers are watching, that sometimes we would do journals where you could actually choose whether to share your journal with your teacher or keep it private. And I would share my writing with my teachers, and they would actually write notes back to me some of the time. And suddenly I realized, like, oh, when I write, people listen to me. They listen to my ideas. And I always wanted to be heard. And so that's how I realized I wanted to be a writer. I wanted people to listen to me. And if there's something you want people to really listen to, I encourage you to write about it. Let's hear the next question.
Sounds good.
This is from Camila, who is in 7th grade in Chelsea, Massachusetts. What are some struggles you face being a Latinx author or illustrator? Juana.
Wow, Camila, I'm truly moved by your question. I think, like everybody else, we need to realize that we belong. I think the idea of, or the understanding that our stories are valid, that our experiences ought to be acknowledged, and that we belong is something that I struggled with initially, especially as I became an immigrant. And I often felt, as Emma was describing, unheard and unseen, and just pretty small, and just like I was having to figure out so many things, and even knowing the language, it just felt like everything was so overwhelming. And it took me a really long time to realize that that I belong, and that my stories belong, and even with an accent, and even with a different story, and even, you know, eating ajiaco and arepas and all the things and all my traditions and all my heritage is extremely important in part of who I am and what I write and how I write. And that by having a good team that helps me write well and that helps me find the words I'm looking for, I can make a positive impact. And to realize that just like I am hoping to feel that sense of belonging and of connection, everybody feels the same way because all these feelings are universal. So I think that has been one of the hardest struggles. And every now and then, when it gets a little solitary around here in my office by myself, I that struggle kind of starts peaking up again. And then when I hear questions like yours, Camila, I realize, well, we're all going through it somehow. And so it is important to realize that and to continue to tell stories and to encourage younger authors and writer and illustrators to tell their stories as well. Yeah, Rene, what do you think?
I think I also believe in belonging. We belongs. We are here, and for me, it's like to tell our stories, because sometimes editors, they don't get it. What is that? What are you talking about? And to explain what is a Katrina. I remember for my Ratoncito Perez, a tooth fairy, Latino tooth fairy. What, we have the tooth fairy. Who is the Raton Perez? But I am glad that there are many books coming out, like, so children can see that their culture is important, their culture is valuable. That is wonderful. It is great. I still remember that little girl who told me after playing loteria for the first time, is loteria important? And she said, yes, it is so important that there is a book. I play loteria every day with my grandma. And I say, of course, loteria is important. But the way she said, if there is a book about it, it must be important. And I think that
Wow.
we need more books for our community. And but sometimes it is really hard, like, to go through the editor process and to say, please publish this story. It has a voice. Our children want to hear about it, and our readers.
Just very quickly, Rene, you made me realize that besides writers and illustrators, we also need editors and booksellers and people and reviewers. So many people that are important around books that you know, if you're not interested in telling stories, that's fine, but you can read them and write about them, or help other people figure out the best way to tell their stories. Emma, what about you?
Yeah, and Juana, I love that you brought up all of the other people in addition to writers who make books happen. You all saw 3 of us make a story together, but in reality, to make a published book, it takes like 20 people, right? There is the writer, there is the illustrator. If the book is translated or bilingual, there is a translator. There is the person who decides, you know, somebody has to decide, like, you know how there's like well, mine doesn't have one that's interesting, but sometimes there's, you know, something interesting going on under the jacket, the shape of the book, the size of the book. That person is called a book designer. That's different from the illustrator. There are editors. There are the people who make sure that, you know, the books get printed at the factory. People who make sure that the books get shipped from the factory, which is often in another country, to all of the warehouses, the people who sell the books in the bookstores, the librarians who help people find books. It takes a lot of people to make a book. And the people who make books, and collectively, I'm going to say that all of those people together who work to make a book, let's call them the publisher, right? The editor who's helping us make our words better, the people who are printing the book, binding it, making it, you know, getting it to bookstores. Those publishers have power. And I think that the struggle that we have all had is convincing people who have power that our stories are important, and that and that kids will benefit from them and can handle them. I remember, for example, A Sled for Gabo. In this book, Gabo has turrón, which is a treat that many people in Latin America exchange at Christmas. And so the question was, will kids be able to say turrón? And all of you who are watching, I bet you can say turrón if you practice a little bit, right? And for a lot of people in the United States, this is a part of our holiday tradition. So those are some of the struggles I faced. We have 5 more minutes and 1 more question. Let's get to that last question. This is from Lyra O in 7th grade in Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Hi, my name is Lyra, and my question is, do you ever put real people into your books?
Juana.
Yes, we do, Lyra. Excellent question. As I said at the beginning, Juan and Lucas is loosely based because I use my imagination and creativity a little bit because there were too many cousins to put within the book. But I did base myself very, very much on not just myself and my dog, who was my beloved companion, but my grandparents and my mom and so many other people that were around me. So yes, people that have been real ended up making it into many of my books. Great question. Thank you, Lyra.
Yeah, and thank you for me. My immigrant experience, it's so powerful, and every day I consider myself an immigrant and learning every day. So my immigrant experience is in my books. Like in some of my books are like little memoirs about me. Like I am Rene the boy. Rene has 2 last names. My shoes and I. And one of my future books that is coming out, I think in 2023, is about me being a brand new immigrant in a new school with everything is in English. Yeah, so it's like I would say that. And also my students tell me, please put me in one of your books.
Oh.
Yeah,
So in this book, A Sled for Gabo, actually, it's a fictional book. The character is imaginary, but Gabo is my nephew's name, and his first name is Gabriel or Gabriel. And when he first started kindergarten, a lot of kids at his school were like, what's that name? Whenever they heard Gabo, and they didn't know that Gabo is a nickname for Gabriel. And so I wanted to have a book with a character named Gabo, so that now, like Rene, you said that your students said, oh, Loteria is important because there's a book about it. My goal is that someday, like, Gabo's going to meet people and they're going to be like, oh, like in A Sled for Gabo. And the one trick you can use to check whether a book is based on real people is go to the dedication. So the dedication here says, para el verdadero Gabo y la verdadera Isa, ahijado querido y sobrinita amada, bilingües y bellos. So that's one way that you can learn whether a book has something to do with a real person. So we have about 1 minute left. In 10 seconds or less, Juana and Rene, do you want to just share one final thought?
Well, just as we've been saying, I think the power of stories is great, and we have to honor them. We have to honor our heritage, and we need to keep this tradition of telling our own stories and sharing them so that we can celebrate our culture and feel even further that powerful sense of belonging we were talking about. Rene, what would you like to share?
Yeah, me too. Let's keep writing, let's keep reading, let's keep learning more about our beautiful Latinx community, and let's writing English and Spanish, bilingual, a mixture of the 2 languages. So let's keep doing it, and thank you for this great festival. It's for our Latinx student and Latinx community and everybody who love Latinx book too. So thank you for being here, and it was a pleasure working with Emma and Juana in this little book about La Cochinita.
Likewise. Emma.
Muchísimas gracias. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to say what I say to kids and what I always sign inside of every book I ever sign. I say, que lean muchos más. Keep reading. So muchísimas gracias, and thank you for attending the Creating a Picture Book panel at the 2021 Latinx Kidlit Book Festival.
Yay.